Shalom, shalom again, brethren. I'm sharing another lesson study with you, and this lesson study may very well be broken up into as many as 4 parts, perhaps a 5th part if it's necessary. The lesson title is Yahuah's New Moon. When is it, and why is it important? In the book of Isaiah, chapter 8, verse 20, we read, "To the Torah and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them." Again, we read in Isaiah chapter 28, verse 10, it says, "For precept must be upon precept, yea, precept upon precept, line upon line upon line, here a little, and there a little." Again, as we read in the same book, Isaiah chapter 58, verse 12, it says, "And Yahuah shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and make fat thy bones, and thou shalt be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water, whose waters fail not." Well, brethren, let us go into this topic according to the Torah and the testimony, utilizing the precepts line upon line to restore the breach that has been made by the adversary that causes confusion as to what is Yahuah's new moon, and when is Yahuah's new moon, and why is it of so much importance. Yahuah's new moon day determines that a new month has begun. When we read in Exodus chapter 12, verse 1 to verse 2, it reads as follows: "And Yahuah spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you." Oftentimes, when reading these verses, many people do not stop and think about what they are actually reading. Here, in Exodus chapter 12, verse 1 to verse 2, Yahuah is telling us that the year, the month, and the day were all to start upon the new moon. New moon day is always defined in scripture as separate from the weeks of 7 days. Some examples of this are found in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 23, and it reads, "And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Shabbat. And she said, It shall be well." In Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1, it reads, "Thus saith Yahuah Elohim, the gate of the inner court that looketh towards the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Shabbat it shall be opened, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened. And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate. And the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go forth, but the gate shall not be shut until the evening. Likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before Yahuah in the Shabbats and the new moons. In 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 5, it reads, And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. Verse 18 reads, Then Jonathan said to David, Tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. Again, when we go to verse 24 and 27, it says, So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon his seat, as at other times, even upon his seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Shaul's side, and David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Shaul spake not anything that day, for he thought, Something hath befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Shaul said unto Jonathan, his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meat, neither yesterday nor today? Verse 34 and 35 reads, So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and did eat no meat the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had done him shame. And it came to pass in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed, with David, and a little lad with him. So this morning in question, that Jonathan went out to meet with David, would have been the third day of the month. But being the third day of the month, we know that New Moon Day had passed, and hence this third day of the month would be the second work day of the week. There are many other scriptures that I can share, but I will not endeavor to read them because I'm trying to save time. So 1 Chronicles chapter 23 verse 31 is another excellent scripture that one can use to help understand what is being explained and expounded upon here. The new moon day determines that the first day of the work week will begin the following day. When we read Exodus chapter 20 verse 9 to 11, it reads, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Shabbat of Yahuah thy Elohim. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days Yahuah made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahuah blessed the Shabbat day and hallowed it. And notice here, it does not say night, it says day. I will address this issue of day at a later date in the lesson study. Brethren, it is impossible to locate the seventh day Shabbat without first the signal of the correct new moon day. Therefore, it is of paramount importance to understand new moons, because they declare to us when our month begins, and that 4 successive weeks will begin following the first lunar phase of the month. In Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to verse 18, it reads, "And Elohim said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And Elohim made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good." So here we see that Elohim puts the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and the stars, in place for specific purposes to aid man. One of those purposes is to measure time, how we measure time. So we know from Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to verse 18 the specific offices or duties that are given to the luminaries to perform as service unto man. In Numbers chapter 10 verse 10, it reads, "Also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginning of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpet over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before Yahuah. I am Yahuah, your Elohim." So we see here that in the days of our gladness and in the solemn days, these solemn days are making reference to the Shabbats, the feast days, and it says in the beginning of your months. So we are now looking at what identifies the beginning of the month, and how do we go about proclaiming the beginning of the month, or rather new moon day. The author of Psalms 104 verse 19 says he, and this he that he's making reference to is Yahuah. So he's saying Yahuah appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. In Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 35 to 36, it reads, "Thus saith Yahuah, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. Yahuah of hosts is his name." If those ordinances, and this word ordinance specifically deals with law, meaning law. So it says, if those laws depart from before me, saith Yahuah, then the seed of Israel shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. So Yahuah is letting us know that there are set laws, ordinances, that the sun, the moon, and the stars follow, because these luminaries are governed. The actions of these luminaries are governed by these laws. Another passage that I will share is Ecclesiasticus chapter 46 verses 6 to verse 9. Ecclesiasticus chapter 43. That is Ecclesiasticus chapter 43 verses 6 to verse 9. It says, he made the moon also to serve in her season, for a declaration of times, and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven, the beauty of heaven, the glory of the stars, an ornament giving light in the highest places of Yahuah. So we see that the moon has a specific office that is declared a little more here and expounded upon a little more here in the book of Ecclesiasticus chapter 43. So now, brethren, let us see what scriptures say is always the first lunar phase. Scripture does provide us with enough information for us to know which day is new moon day and which days are not. We know from Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to verse 18 that the sun, the moon, and the stars are to be used as signs. To identify the sign of the new moon, let us first read Deuteronomy chapter 16 verse 1, which states, observe the new moon called Abib, and keep the Passover of Yahuah Elohim. The word observe comes from the word shamar, and it means to keep, to guard, to watch. For to observe. So what do we look for? Well, in Psalms 119:105, it says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. So by following Yahuwah's word, we will recognize what is in light and what is in darkness. Again, in Psalms 104 verse 19, it says, he appointed the moon for seasons, the sun knoweth his going down. So by looking at Yahuwah's scripture, we see that the moon is going to become visible when the sun goes down. There is only one time of the month when this occurs. In scripture, we see that there is always light on new moon days, which is the first worship day of the month. The first Shabbat, which is day number 8. The second Shabbat, which is day 15. And the third Shabbat, which is day 22. But we never see light on the fourth Shabbat day, which is day 29 of the month. This is verified by the following scriptures. Light is always seen upon New Moon Day, which is day 1 of the month. We can read Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 3. There's light. We can read Isaiah 66, 23. There is light. We can read 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 16 to 23. There is light. We can read Joshua chapter 6, verse 11 to verse 16. And Jasher chapter 88, verse 14 and verse 17. Brethren, this is the end of part 1 of Yahuah's new moon. When is it and why is it important? As I have said, I will try to make each part of this lesson study as short as I possibly can. The next lesson study on this topic, part 2, will follow shortly. Shalom.